Bulavnaka Fiji, and welcome to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. And today we'll touch on, various plans and the implementation of these plans by government already I know, discussed last week on Gold FM Speak Your Mind, the new designs for the new national symbol and hopefully a new Fiji flag. And also, we also chatted a little bit about government's plans. Now, already highlighted on Gold FM last week, and I'm happy to be joined by the Chief Economic Planning Officer at the Department of Strategic Office in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Ernest Walker. Welcome to the show.
Bula Peli, thanks for having us.
And, we are going to talk about the formulation of Fiji's five-year and 20-year development plans. Now, already has started the consultations process in the Central Division and also, nationwide, yes?
Yes, as you said, the Fijian government is right now in the process of formulating a 5-year and a long-term 20-year development plan for Fiji. Development plans are important tools for government. They assist governments by setting out detailed strategies and programs for the allocation of resources in all areas of development. For example, for schools, for hospitals, roads and bridges, key economic sectors like tourism, and as I said, all areas of development.
Now, when we talk about consultation with government, a lot of the general public assume that you need to be an expert at a certain something. But these consultations are actually open to everyone, yes?
Yeah. Yes, they are. I mean, we're the ones that need to be the experts. People, all Fijians are invited to participate in these consultations, and it's very important that they do participate in this process, because input from the people really helps us in formulating a plan that can improve the standards of living for all Fijians.
Now, when you say all Fijians also, we would like to also highlight to all the general public that it could mean any kind of development that they see fit also in their particular community, whether it be in education or whether it be in basic needs like water services or any of that sort, right?
Yes, actually I should have mentioned that earlier. That's a very key area. Utilities, electricity, water, and of course other infrastructure like seaports and airports, so transport. And of course government has invested heavily in roads in the last few years. That infrastructure spending will continue in the next few years because it's very important for economic growth.
Before we even go into the various divisions that a government is planning to go and have these consultations, let's also look at what types of, has there been any kind of process like this in previous, in the past?
Well, there have been consultation processes. The difference with this one is that government is essentially starting with a blank sheet, so to say. We haven't produced any plan.
Okay.
Normally, what has happened in the past is that we produce a draft plan, we then take that out and we consult with a wide range of stakeholders, including the general public. This time, the Fijian government has made the decision to start with a blank sheet, and for us in the planning office and in the Ministry of Finance to actually go out and listen to people. And that will form the basis, the views and aspirations that the people of Fiji have. Particularly for a 20-year plan, we're trying to ask people what type of country do they want to live in by 2035.
So when you say this type of process, this is actually the first time this type of consultation has happened.
Yes, it is.
And it's interesting because before, new governments come in and they already have some sort of a plan of how they want things to be done, and carrying on the previous government's plans. And this is very new. And do you reckon this is also a great way for the ministries and people in the ministry to learn a little bit more about what the actual needs are of Fiji people?
Yes, particularly for us in a central agency like the Ministry of Finance. That's a crucial part of the process for us to actually go out and try and get a better idea of what's actually happening on the ground. So Um, in that regard, we're trying to encourage all Fijians to please participate in this process.
Okay. Well, already the first consultation in the Central Division in Suva yesterday. And how did that fare?
Um, well, we had about 24 meetings in both the Central and the
Oh,
Western
okay.
Division. Some villages in rural Naitasiri, we're starting that, we're completing that area today. Um, We've only had, we're currently getting feedback on
Okay.
about 6 of those 24 meetings, and we had about 125 people showed up. So that's about, that's consistent with our targets right now to try and get at least 20 people per venue. I think the lowest turnout was at the Civic Center yesterday morning. Obviously, people are busy with work, but about 14 people showed up, and in some of the villages and some of the rural areas, we have about 30, 31, 32 people attending those forums.
All right. Well, we'll continue more, a little bit more about what the intentions of these consultations are about, and also where you could also have your voice heard and in this plan of government's 5-year and 20-year development plan. Right here on Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. We'll be right back after this short break. You're back on Gold FM, Speak Your Mind, and we continue our discussion with Mr. Ernest Walker from the Department of Strategic Office in the Ministry of Finance. And just before the break, Mr. Walker had mentioned also that this is the first time consultations like these of development plans for government has gone out in terms of getting ideas for what all Fijians want and how to get these development plans and have a better approach to having them implemented. And that's starting with a blank page. I always say that's a great way to start. And I'm glad this approach has also gotten the various departments and various government ministries out also to consult with the public. And let's have a look. Well, generally, like you said, prior to this, there hadn't been any government that's done this in terms of starting off on a blank page. Normally carrying on with plans that have already been put for implementation, and also with what that particular government comes in areas that they wish to prioritize. Now, getting these ideas, how long does it take for the process? Getting hearing what the people have to say and ask for, and what times in terms of an idea of how long these actual reviews and also requests get into some kind of plan of action.
Yes, well, this actual consultation process, we're planning on on it taking about 6 to 7 weeks. We've identified about 700 venues, and that's right across the country. Of course, the majority of meetings will take place in the Central and the Western Division on VT level because, well, about 80% of
the population
live here. But from next week, the teams will start going out. We're in Kandavu on the 29th through to about the end of the month or early July. As I said, the whole process will take about 6 to 7 weeks, and we're looking at about 700 meetings like this, involving about 30 to 50. The more, the better, but we're targeting about 30 to 50 people per meeting, and it will take about 6 to 7 weeks. In terms of the plan, once these consultations, we will carry out specific consultations with key national stakeholders in civil society, the private sector. That will take place after this nationwide public consultation. And the actual writing of the plan, we hope to have that completed by the announcement, just before the announcement of the national budget in November.
Now, when the announcement is made for these plans, would obviously there'd be some kind of consultation once more with what people also can grasp from what they need in terms of fine tuning these plans?
Uh, yes,
That's in the plans.
after we produce a draft plan, that
Mm,
plan will be released to the public. It won't be as extensive
right.
as the current process, but it will be available publicly, and the general public will be able to provide input on that. Sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. We have various form of other forums by which the public can provide their input. They can do it by email. We have an email address that written submissions can be made to. That's ndpfj2015 at gmail.com.
Okay.
And you can just contact the planning office or call the planning office, and we'll give you other details about how you can go about providing your input into this very important national development initiative.
You mentioned the consultations on Viti Lebu, Vanua Lebu. Planning on going on the small Lomai Viti group and the other islands on these
Yes,
consultations?
as I said, we start off in Kandavu, but we plan to visit, I think, all the islands in the Lomaipiti group and the Lau group, and also we'll spend some time in Rutuma as well.
Mhm. Now, who are the, well, this obviously would involve the whole government departments and also ministries, various stakeholders. You mentioned the involvement also of CSOs and NGOs. In what capacity, in terms of the planning, are they going to be involved in?
Well, for instance, they're free to come to these
Oh, okay.
consultations. The venues have been advertised, but later on, after we complete this consultation exercise, we'll set specific meetings with key stakeholders, because their input into the development planning for the future of Fiji is also very important and welcome by the Fijian government.
Well, with all these areas, what is the hope of, well, from the Ministry of Finance's standpoint, of achieving? What are you looking at achieving? What is your main goal besides addressing the needs of Fiji? How are you also looking at this process? Is this something that you think you hope to replicate in future in terms of consultative processes? Is this the new plan for getting the views of Fijians and having plans for development or implementation of government plans? Starting off with a blank sheet.
Well, it's certainly the decision that the current government has made. Obviously, when you talk about implementing various strategies and programs, there is a political process involved, and we of course have general elections. But yes, government is committed to this type of planning approach, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Well, for any of your questions, please feel free to call us up on 3220906 and 3220907. Flick us an email at goldfm@fbc.com.fj. If you've got questions with regards to Fiji government's 5-year and 20-year development plans and also the consultative processes behind it that's happening, well, already started nationwide. We'll be back on Gold FM Speak Your Mind right after these few words. The importance of planning and also government's plans of the implementation of a 5-year and 20-year development plan has already started with consultations nationwide. On Gold FM Speak Your Mind, and I'm with Ernest Walker, the Chief Economic Planning Officer from the Department of Strategic Office and the Ministry of Finance. Now, let's, in the past, with planning and these types of planning, and also in terms of developing these plans and putting it in the budget that you initially, well, we'll have to go through this process in order to put out on budget. What has, comparatively, what has it been like for you?
Yes, well, obviously, significant achievements have been made in the last 8 years, starting with the promulgation of our new
Mhm,
constitution,
mhm.
and of course the first and establishment of a merit-based equal opportunity for all Fijians, a new voting system, and of course the first truly democratic general elections in September of last year. Our economy is performing well, particularly in the last few years. We've had growth of 4%, or averaging growth of 4%. And the Constitution also recognizes that we still have some work to do. It contains a very modern and robust Bill of Rights, which guarantees all Fijians fundamental socio-economic rights. So that's also something new for Fiji, such as access to water, the right to water, the right to electricity, transport. There's also the right to a clean environment and other socio-economic rights, the right to housing, affordable housing, a decent wage. Government has put in place measures for a minimum wage, and so there is recognition that we still have some work to do, but yes, we have made some significant progress over the last 8 years.
And these consultations will immediately address all these issues that you've mentioned, that is protected under the Bill of Rights, and also once again stress with all Fijians that they need to come and utilize this process. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's very important, but particularly when a couple of specific examples I'll give. When we have a plan that is produced this way, it strengthens our partnerships with the international community and our development partners in particular. When we produce a plan that has public input, and there are strategies and programs which are consistent with the mandate of our international partners, they're more willing to come on board. So in terms of being able to attract development aid for Fiji, it is a very important tool for government.
Now, once again, with these types of specific issues that could be brought up at these consultations, it's not limited to big plans. It could be a small community with all these little issues, or well, no, I'll say little in terms of where they wish to have, or whether they wish to have electricity, or if they do have electricity, what types of all the other issues regarding where the wiring goes and any of that, that can also be heard in these consultations, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's open to all Fijians, and we're hoping that they will show up and participate and tell us what are the challenges they face both now, but also what their aspirations are for the future. That's a big part of the process. For example, in any development plan, we try to assess like population trends, economic and other key socio-economic indicators. But for example, like with population, we'll study the population trend in particular areas. For example, 15 years ago, you might have had only 5,000 homes in one particular area. Today, you might have 15,000 homes there, and the population trend for the future. And that gives us an idea of what the trend is like going forward. And that helps government plan how to allocate its resources, whether it's for electricity or water or for housing.
Mhm. And there's also a growing number of young Fijians, young people that's also happening. And we'd also, I'm assuming that we'd also encourage the voices of the young people to be heard at these consultations. Yes,
Yes,
most definitely.
government does recognize that there are certain issues. We are, of course, a young country, not just in terms of when we gained independence, but about 35% of our population are aged 15 and under. When you consider those aged between 16 and 24, that's at about 40% of the population. So they are a significant part, and it's very important that they also show up and have their say. Government does accept that employment opportunities are an issue and a development concern. And we'd be very interested in hearing about what their views are on how to address some of these issues, creating employment opportunities.
Now, once again, the dates of the consultation process end in July. Is that right?
Yes.
This.
Yes, each of the venues are being published in the Fiji Sun, so people can check up on where we'll be in their particular areas, or you can just, as I said, call the planning office and we'll have those details for you.
And also, you mentioned an email address. Once again, for those who didn't hear it the first time, you can also send in your views and comments and questions to the particular email address.
Yes, that's ndpfj2015 at gmail.com.
Is there also a website of the Strategic Planning Office?
No, but you can, through the Fiji Information Portal or the Department of Information website, you can also log on and there'll be details about the venues and this consultation process.
All right. And just before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add before, in terms of encouraging more Fijians to attend these consultations?
Well, yes, Pedeli. I mean, I know it's quite a hard question to think that far ahead, 20 years. I remember the first time in a workshop about 10 years ago, someone asked me that question, think 10 years ahead for Fiji, and I remember drawing a blank. But in addition to that, we do recognize that people also have immediate concerns that they'd like the Fijian government to address. We're very interested in hearing from the people, and again, please come out and participate in this process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. And like you said, he mentioned those contacts that you can get in touch with in terms of getting your views and also what your hopes are heard by the government and also the various representatives out in the various consultations. Well, you've got to check the Fiji Sun and also listen to us right here on Gold FM. We'll keep you informed also of where those consultations will be held in the near future. And also, well, stay tuned. We've got another segment on talking about the Fiji flag coming up right here on Gold FM. Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind, and I'm joined in studio by Bernie and Tima from, the National Flag Committee Secretariat, and chatting about the new Fiji flag. I know that many of you have had this conversation, or at least a discussion of it in the last couple of days, and here to clarify a few things with regards to how the processes have come through with choosing the new flag and how it's going to be. Well, these lovely ladies are going to chat with me a little bit more. Now, a lot of criticism also has come since the announcement of the flag, choosing a new flag and a new national symbol. And I'm sure you've heard many of these criticisms, but let's go back to how it was done in 1970. Our flag that we proudly call our own, and we're about to change to a new symbol. Now, comparing the processes, obviously, back in 1970, there weren't as many entries.
Yes, thanks. Let me just clarify a few things. Back in 1970, they ran the national flag competition, and it ran for a month. There were only 410 submissions, and the flag was chosen, I think, in the span of a day. The competition closed on the 26th of June, 1970. On the 27th of June, 1970, they launched the new Fiji flag, and that was chosen by 4 cabinet ministers.
Only 4 cabinet ministers.
Only 4 cabinet ministers that chose. I think this new Fiji flag will have a more consultative process. We have a committee of 13 members of the public who aren't involved at all in the government, except for the Honourable Assistant Minister. And so we can say, being in the room on the days, that there were different voices that were being heard. And I think that was what was important about having people from the public, that these different voices were being heard, different aspects of different facets of the country. So, and I think we all wanted to put together a flag that was representative of all the people of Fiji, to use symbols that represented all the people of Fiji without leaving anybody or anyone out.
Now, with these symbols, there were also, when the initial flag competition was put out, there was a guideline. And the guideline said in it that it would keep the blue, the Fiji blue that we've come to recognize as our own. And also there were certain other elements that were put in, like, one, we were removing the Union Jack.
Yes.
And we were also looking at symbols. One was we were still looking to truly identify us as Fijians, but also moving away from certain, too much of religious aspects and of the sort. Now, how did they come about, or how did the committee have to, or who made these, whose decision was it to have these elements, or have them, of those guidelines for the initial flag competition?
I think to answer that question, we'd have to tell you more about what's in the current flag at the moment.
Right.
So on the canton on the flag is the Union Jack. Now, if for people who travel overseas, before they know you, when they see your flag, the first thing they ask you is, are you a colony of Fiji?
Okay.
But we've been independent for 45 years, and I think it is about time that we find a flag that represents that sovereignty and independence of the country. And also the other thing that's on the flag, on both the shield and on the Union Jack, is the Cross of St. George.
Right.
The Cross of St. George and the lion. So these are both symbols that are linked to the UK. So these are some things that we need to move away from and start finding symbols that represent us as Fijians.
Yes.
I think because people have become so used to these symbols that they think that removing them would be, it's a change. And naturally, as all humans, we are not susceptible quite to change, especially when it's that immediate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But in the current flag that we have, they have things like the bananas and the cocoa pods and the lion. The lion represents the British monarchy. And then we have the cocoa pods and the bananas, which were our biggest industry back
At
in the
that
day.
time. Yeah.
I don't think that anyone in this day, with the modern country that we have, knows the significance of that anymore. So we're trying to find some symbols for a young person nowadays who can go out and say, okay, this is something that I can identify with.
Now, so you've obviously received some ideas of what could be put in the flag. Apart from these, what were some of the ideas that you've received so far? I understand you were with the Itoke station yesterday,
Yes.
and there were some constructive suggestions. And what were some of them?
Okay.
On the Itoke station, we had a lot of people calling in asking for the cross to be put on the flag. But one thing we need to understand is that we're a multicultural and multi-religious country. So if we put the cross on, we've got to put everybody else's religious symbol on, which is going to be difficult, and the flag will come out looking too busy. So what we need is just like simple symbols that represent all of us, that it cuts across all cultures and all religions.
Yes.
Now, I understand there was also the vexiologist that was also on hand to consult with the committee and gave some interesting outlook on how a flag should actually look like. And in fact, some of, I think one of the ideas that he had pointed out was our actual flag, the Fiji flag that we know, is actually quite a bit complicated. It's quite complicated.
It is quite complicated. He drew comparisons with the situation that happened in Canada, who had a flag very similar to the one we have now. And when they became independent, they went through this whole process as well. So this is not new to the world. And as you know now, the Canadian flag is the maple leaf against the red and the white. And so his idea was that it's complicated, but we can make things a bit simpler that represents everybody. I think one of the best points he made was, instead of having something on the flag to represent every group, have one thing on the flag to represent everybody in the nation. And I think that was one of the important aspects that came out in the committee meeting.
That's very interesting, because now we've got to just with the most difficult thing we thought that would be so easy is to find that one symbol, or at
Yes,
least
exactly.
that simple symbol.
I think as you listen to how that works out, you understand how the final flags came to be. Why there's only one symbol.
It's
or
based on principles. You know, it's not like a painting that you can make it. People are saying it's not colorful enough. No, there's a set of principles we need to follow when it comes to flag design.
All right, we'll continue our discussion right after this short break. I'm sure, ladies, if you feel free to also call us up, 3220906 and 3220907. We'll continue our discussion right after this short break on our new Fiji flag designs. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind, and we continue our discussion this afternoon with the new Fiji flag, the designs and the search for a symbol that truly represents Fiji. And how do you feel about it? And here in studio, Bernie and Tima from the National Flag Committee Secretariat. And just before we touch on symbolism, let's take this caller, Mr. Kumar, Anup Kumar from Nosori, and a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Kumar.
Hello, sir. I want to know, apart from Fiji, any other countries who change their flag?
Could you please repeat? Could you just repeat that, Mr. Kumar?
Apart from Fiji, any other countries who change their flag? And another question is mine. And what is the main reason, or what is the main issue that this flag will be changing? And something is wrong, or because this flag is, we know from this flag, plenty people know Fiji. So what is the main issue? What is the main reason that this flag will be changing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. All right, I will allow Tima or Bernie to answer that question. Now, his first part of the question was: is there been any other country that has changed its flag? And I think his second part really was linked with his third question was why the reasons why the change.
Right.
And I think that's basically what a lot have also been asking. Why do we need the change in the national flag? Yeah?
So some of the countries that have changed their flag, I think we've talked about earlier, is one of them is Canada. South Africa has changed its flag, and New Zealand is in the process of changing their flag.
That's right.
So one of the main reasons, like as we've said earlier, is that we need to change the symbols on the flag. Just in terms of the Union Jack taking a good proportion of our flag and on the top, and in terms of the shield itself, the symbolism in the shield is no longer relevant and outdated. So we need to find symbols that best reflect us as a nation or best reflect our people. So that's why we're trying to change the flag. And also a good point is that the change of the flag was announced in 2013 by the Prime Minister. And after that announcement, we went on to the elections. So he was elected by a large majority of people in Fiji and now has come into government. So from 2013 till now, we haven't, it's been public knowledge that the flag change was going to happen. And so right now we're just implementing what government has set out in order to change the flag to find symbols that are more relevant and
relevant to the new Fiji. And also, well, that's a lot of the questions that have also arose in the last couple of days is the symbols on the flag. And that we've been talking about. Now, let's talk a little bit about the meaning of these symbols that have been proposed in the 23 designs.
Okay, thank you, Pedali. I think what we need to lead with now is that there were basic principles of the flag design. So there were 5 basic principles that were provided to the committee, and the first one was to keep it simple. One of the things that stands out is that the flag should be so simple that a child can draw it from memory. I think at this point, with a flag so complex as the current one that we have now, if you were to sit a class 5 or class 4 student down and ask them to draw the flag, they would draw aspects of it but not really know what it means to them. The second principle was to use meaningful symbolism. If you were to look at the flags now, you would notice that the first thing that was confirmed was that we would stick with our noble banner blue, the Fiji blue of our current flag right now. And that's got several meanings. It's supposed to represent peace, serenity and freedom, and solidarity with our island nations. Then we have the yellow that you'll be able to see there. Yes, that represents radiance, life, sustenance, and a new beginning. It recalls the sun in Fiji's place as the land of the first rising sun, as you can see on, I think, 51. Most represents that.
Right there.
First dawn, first land of the first rising sun. The dark blue that you'll be able to see in several designs, that represents prosperity, trust, dignity, and intelligence, and represents the depth of Fiji's culture and Fiji's history. We have the red that you can see up at the Tangi Modia and in the Ndrua, and that represents the strength, the energy, and the passion of the Fijian people. The sun that you can see in the stars, in 51, yes, the sun again represents the land of the rising sun, and talks about our tropical location. It represents health, light, life, and energy, as well as the warmth of the Fijian people, which is well known around the globe. That's what the Fijian people are known for. We have several triangles that you can see in 52, 53, and that's supposed to represent Fiji moving forward together as one people. We have the stars to represent the guidance, navigation, and direction, and it's supposed to symbolize the gallantry of the Fijian people. We have, as you can see in 53 and 38, as well as 36, we have 3 stars. 3 represents the 3 independent branches of government as a strong and vibrant democracy and our constitution, and they represent the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature.
Okay.
Right. 7 is a number that you can see, yes, at 45, and that symbolizes like a sort of good omen for a lot of Fijians. We received a lot of concepts that discussed 7 as a good omen. We have the Tangi Modia, which a lot of people may be very familiar with. That's supposed to represent blessings, courage, and peace. And it's unique to Fiji and found only in the island of Taveuni. The turtle that you can see represents the blessings, courage, represents humility, the humility of the Fijian people, as well as our strength and our patience and our perseverance. The vui that you can also see there is supposed to represent community and respect. It's the call of the nation to come together as one people. Then you can also see that the vui is also, the Ndrua plays a very big role there, because the Ndrua represents Fiji's past, our present, and our future, and our voyage as one people and one nation. The tapa down the bottom, as you may all know, is a very Fijian, it represents our mini islands with its dark brown, and our past with its geometric and triangle elements. And in 57 there is a coconut tree there, which we all know as represents the sustenance and versatility of the Fijian people. So I think
And the 7th team.
and the seventh team.
And
If
the
you wanna
Saints team.
throw something in there.
That's my vote.
Well, that's definitely the explanations of these symbols on the 23 designs that we have here. And it's very important that this is still not the final design.
Yes.
And once again, for the benefit of our listeners, you can send in your comments and preferences to... All right, I'll let you read it.
Thanks. We would like to get people to come to www.newfijiflag.com. There you'll find a survey that's more qualitative. You'll be able to tell us the difference and what you want to change, how you want to change it, and that's what's important for us. You can also text the short codes of the flags. Say if you really are moved by flag 47, text the number 47 to 323 for Vodafone or 170 for Digicel. We also have newfijiflag@gmail.com that you can email your submissions to, as well as you can drop your submissions to the Department of Information and Government Buildings or post it to PO Box 2225 Government Buildings in Suva.
Also, if you have flag designs that you'd like to draw out based on these concepts, we welcome that also. If you could drop it off at Department of Information, or if you could email it to us.
Thank you very much for joining us
Thank you very much,
and for
Peter.
clarifying a little bit more about our national symbol, the new Fiji flag.